All right, folks, welcome back live at Drew's house, another edition. Hope everybody's doing okay out there. Final show of the week. We've had another fun one. Hope you have enjoyed it. Sports in a pandemic. We do a lot of sports talk here, especially on a local level. Today we're going to talk with one of the top basketball insiders out there, Jeff Goodman, talking some college hoops. Very excited. He's been on the show before. He's a local boy. Let's get right to Jeff Goodman. All right, so Jeff Goodman of Stadium Hoops, coming to us from Newburyport. He's a local boy. Good to see you, Jeff. How you doing through the pandemic, my man?
Hanging in there. We got hoops. I traveled for the first time about a week and a half ago, went to Chicago where Stadium's located for a draft show. And then this past week, went to Mohegan Sun and actually watched basketball games in person. It was like a surreal moment because I haven't really, you talk to people on the phone throughout all this, but I haven't seen Jay Wright, Villanova's head coach, Tony Bennett, Virginia's head coach. And to see these guys, it just felt like a sense of some sense of normalcy. It wasn't normal because we all had our masks on and, trying to do the right thing. But at least seeing these guys, seeing players play was fun, watching them with smiles on their faces. And, everything was good other than not being able to gamble, not being able to play blackjack when I was in Mohegan Sun was not easy.
It is crazy because it's good to have the sports back. You actually tweeted about that when you actually walked into that arena, I think, right? About how I think we may have taken this for granted or something like it's crazy to be back and playing, which is good, but no fans. It's got to be weird.
It is, and again, we don't know with college basketball how this is going to play out. We've seen a ton of cancellations pretty much every day. With the NBA, it was different, obviously being in the bubble. But I think even with the NBA starting up this year, you're going to have your hiccups just like they have had in NFL, in baseball, all the other leagues. The NBA put a lot of money into it down in that bubble in Orlando. And, college basketball will do the same when it comes down to the NCAA tournament at the end of the year. But the key is getting there. How do we get there? But there's enough inventory. There's 350 teams. So that even if Duke is shut down, you've got enough other games going on every night that it'll be okay. If Duke doesn't play for 2 weeks, you still might have Kentucky, Kansas, all these other teams.
At least we're getting to the point where we appreciate each game now, I think. Man, I never take for granted any of these things. You are the ultimate basketball insider. You know a lot of these players even before they get to these college ranks. When you talk to the college kid, the college athlete, are they disappointed a little bit that they're not playing in front of packed houses, or is it just anything to get on the court right now?
Yeah, they're just excited to be playing. They don't – honestly, I asked them, a bunch of them that after the games at Mohegan Sun, and they were all like, you know what, we just want to play ball. We just want to play ball. And they said, at first they walk out and there's no fans and they're looking around. But after the first media timeout, they're just playing ball. They're not even looking around. I think they're going to get used to it. And I think it's going to be one of those things where, unfortunately, some schools, I think Kentucky had a couple thousand fans or something at their game. A lot of these SEC schools. Listen, Gonzaga, how about this? Gonzaga has a guy test positive. They're in Fort Myers, Florida. A player tests positive, and they play, and Auburn agrees to play them. Well, it's SEC, it's Gonzaga, it's up to those two, and you're in Florida. So they're allowing it to happen too, where if that had happened up here, there's no way in hell. Like if a player tests positive, 99% of the schools right now are saying well, number one, we're not playing. Number two, the team that's supposed to play you is saying there's no way in hell we're playing you. Even if everybody else tests negative, just, because of the sheer chance that you could be shut down in 7 days for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and we saw at the football level, who was the coach that was playing Florida State? Was
it Saban? No.
No.
Dabo.
Not the sick one, though. He was saying that his game got canceled last week.
Dabo Sweeney from Clemson. But was it Clemson?
He was sick. But the old BYU coach, who's coaching somewhere else now, big guy, he said, I have no interest in traveling to Florida State after these canceled games. He said, I don't want to go back down there. They need to get their stuff together. Yep. And we're seeing that's a big issue, right? Is all these states doing things differently, conferences doing things differently? It must be.
That's the worst part of it. That's to me where the NCAA screws this whole thing up. And maybe they don't have the jurisdiction. I don't know. But to me, they should make one consistent rule that, hey, if somebody tests positive, you can't play that day. And I know there are false positives out there. I just got a text from a coach saying, hey, we had our game shut down. We had a false positive, tested them again like 4 more times. The whole team, everybody's negative, and we lost a couple games out of this. I get it. It sucks, but what's worse? Is it worse one team doing that or you infecting other teams and it just going round and round? And I'm worried about how it's going to be now coming back from Thanksgiving. We all are, period in society, but within the microcosm of basketball and college basketball, I'm worried about kids seeing their families that came out to watch them play. Again, at Mohegan Sun, no families were allowed. There were only 3 of us reporters allowed kind of down in that. It's not really a bubble, but it kind of is a bubble. We quarantined for like 12 hours till we got our test results back.
And it just hit me. Bronco Mendenhall, who's wherever he's coaching now, that was the guy who said it. He was upset with the Florida State. But, I was watching some of those Mohegan games that you were at, and the ESPN broadcasters were talking about how tight of the ship they thought it was being run. They were like, I'm pretty impressed with this place. I mean, we've been tested however many times, and we go right up to our hotel or walked up there. They said it was pretty good. You agree?
Yeah, they're escorted. The players and coaches couldn't go anywhere. They're escorted. So, but the only thing I'd say is the quarantine period was probably a little light for me.
Yeah.
Now, again, listen, I'm not complaining because I don't know if I would have made it in there, 3, 4, 5, 10 days. But it was basically you get there, you take the test, you get the negative back, and you're good to go 8 hours later or 12 hours later, usually somewhere like that. But yeah, those guys were pretty locked down. They couldn't go anywhere. Coaches could not leave their rooms without an escort.
It's crazy. What's the feeling inside because you're going to be one of the few that gets to take in a basketball game here for a while. I can imagine, I played in a pretty good pickup game or 2 here or there where people start, getting into it on the sidelines. I do feel like it's the sport that can kind of translate a little bit. You can kind of create your own energy. The bench can help lift you a little bit. Is that true? Can you feel that?
Yeah. I mean, listen, they piped in crowd noise at Mohegan Sun. They do the best they can, right? I mean, again, you're going to see a game tonight. Duke's going to play Michigan State at Cameron in Durham, and there'll be no fans there. There'll be the cardboard cutouts, and you're not going to have the Cameron crazies. So it's not going to be the same. We know that. I think kids are just at a point where they want to play so bad that they'll overlook that. And coaches, the same thing. They're going to overlook the fact that a lot of places won't have fans at all. And again, that's another kind of inequity among college basketball right now is some places are going to have a couple thousand fans. Other places are going to have none. Why not just say, hey, straight off the bat, for the first month, no fans. At any Division I school, what are we doing? Don't we want to just get the sport off the ground and do it okay? And then you can reassess after, a month or a couple home games. And maybe you bring in 1,000 fans then. But why? I just feel like, what are we doing? Just try to get the sport off the ground, each sport. I felt that way with the NFL too. And I don't think it came back to bite Kansas City in the ass. But I'm watching the Chiefs, week 1, and they've got fans and nobody else does. And I'm like, it's not fair. Also, it's not equitable at all.
Yeah. Again, Jeff Goodman joining us here. You talk to all these coaches too, and let's face it, there are some personalities in college basketball these days, and I'm sure they don't all see this the same way. Are there some coaches that are on completely other ends of the spectrum when it comes to this is ridiculous or, we're not being safe enough?
Yeah, 100%. I won't call them out by name, but yeah, there's a bunch that are just like, you know what? I mean, again, look at Gonzaga's Mark Few. They got a kid test positive. A lot of coaches would say, hey, you know what, we're not playing. He moved on, and Bruce Pearl played against them at Auburn. So you have a lot of coaches that are just saying, you know what, we're not worried. I'm not worried about myself. And the mortality rate of these kids is so high, that it's so low in a sense that none of these kids that are 19, 20, 21 years old, they're dying because of this, that a lot of these coaches are saying, hey, you know what? We're going to play ball. They want to play, so let's go play ball.
Do you feel like the kids – I ask all the high school kids we have on this show the same question, and I get some mixed answers. I mean, they're pretty honest about it. Do you think the kids respect this virus?
Yeah, I think they respect it. But again, I think they see the numbers when it pertains to them. And they say, you know what, I'm going to be fine. None of, my friends have gotten it. Other people have gotten it. They've gotten through it. Even Jim Boeheim, right? Jim Boeheim got COVID and he's okay now. Do we know the long-term effect of it? No, we don't. But I think, again, listen, I'm surprised, but really pleasantly surprised that we've seen nothing in college football. Like, I thought we might have something really bad happen on the field, and it hasn't happened, luckily. And that's a great sign. And again, I'm hoping – I can't believe, like I do fantasy football, and I can't believe I'm like a week away from the fantasy football play. Like, when we started fantasy football, I'm drafting, I'm saying, like, why am I even bothering? We're not going to have a season. Like, what are we doing here? And we're kind of at the end of it now and towards the end of the NFL season to some degree. And, like, I just can't believe we're here.
Yeah. It's remarkable. We were going to go have last time I think I spoke to you, we were going to go get a beer together at the Big East tournament.
That's right.
And which of course was quite the experience in itself. I never made my trip down. Did you ever start your trip to the Big East?
No, I was ready to go. The night before, I was all packed, ready to fly out that morning on a Delta, whatever, one of those shuttles. And my wife was kind of on me the night before. She was like, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, but even if it gets scrapped, it'll be a great story. Even if all hell breaks loose, and all hell did break loose, I did not go, and I'm glad I didn't go just because it was New York. I was just worried about going to New York and being around all these people at that point. I think, obviously, I made the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, that was I don't think I will ever forget. I mean, I'll never forget that week anyway, but the NCAA basketball part of that, I'm a college basketball guy, so that's my favorite time of year. I mean, I love those final season tournaments into March Madness. I mean, it's the best. Games everywhere. And I go down to the Big East tournament a lot to watch my Friars. But to watch that all unfold, I mean, I was literally driving back from work at noontime, and on the radio, they were talking about the last Big East game that was playing. And it's like, it's the last sport that's hanging in there, Big East basketball, And then they didn't come back out for the second half.
It was ridiculous that they even took the court. And again, it just shows a lack of unity and coordination and, of the NCAA, right? Like, the fact of the matter that you have, like, every conference putting out their own statement of, well, we're canceling. There were like 15 of them. I'm trying to keep track that morning of who's canceling their conference tournament and when. And instead of the NCAA just having a call, Mark Emmert, the president, who makes a ton of money, excuse my language, but he can't figure this out and get everybody on a conference call that morning and say, hey, guys, here's the deal. Let's just do one release. Everybody's scrapping their conference tournament. Like, let's just do it in one shot and be coordinated, be unified, be organized. But, man, the NCAA cannot get out of its own way.
It is interesting. And, I do want to talk about some of the good stories of this basketball season, because I know you've already stumbled on plenty of those. But when you look back at last year, there were some great storylines last year. And I know some kids that really showed a lot of class and said, hey, we get it. I mean, it's a pandemic. This is life. There'll be bigger issues in life. But, some of those stories that were lost last year, give me a couple of them that kind of strike you when you look back.
I mean, I think, again, some of those teams, the Dayton Flyers had a chance, San Diego State. You just had teams, Baylor, that weren't traditionally having an opportunity to play for a national title, right? And all of them had legitimate shots last year. The big boys weren't nearly as powerful. So you had a bunch of teams that really were in the top 5 or 10 all year that had legitimate chances to cut down the nets and, to have that kind of scrapped. And a lot of those teams are completely different, right? Dayton, Obi Toppin goes to the NBA, so they're not going to get another chance. San Diego State, Malachi Flynn, their best player, goes to the NBA. They're not going to have that chance. Baylor's got most of its team back. So Baylor's they're the number 2 team in the country right now behind Gonzaga for me.
Jeff, how do you not mention the hottest team in basketball at the end of last year, the Providence Friars? Come on.
They were. Like, they turned that thing around. They were so god-awful in the first half of the season. And then I remember I went down there, and Cooley said to me, he was like, listen, I had lunch with Cooley, and he said, I gave him way too much rope. Like I'm done. I'm done trusting these guys and giving them the rope. And he pulled it a lot tighter on them, the leash tighter, and especially with like Alpha Diallo and Pipkins. And those two guys just completely turned around their seasons, and Providence turned around its season because of them. But your Friars struggled against Indiana yesterday.
They did. And Coach Cooley did not look happy yesterday. So although Indiana, I think, is a pretty good team too.
Good.
What is the storyline? I follow you on Twitter, and you find these stories that kind of just, I guess blindside maybe is the wrong word, but that kind of, where'd that come from? What a great story. And you've had a few of them so far. What are the storylines to watch here this NCAA pandemic basketball season?
Honestly, the biggest storyline is obviously like who's playing, who's not, right?
Yes.
And whether we're going to get a full season, whether we're going to get a pause. But beyond that, again, I think it's still the fact, like, Gonzaga is the best team in the country, clearly the best team in the country right now. And Mark Few hasn't won a title, but he got to the Final Four a few years ago, and everybody still is like always doubting Gonzaga, right? Well, they don't do it in the tournament, this and that. This dude has – what he's done, if anybody went to Spokane, Washington, and saw what he's done there, it's one of the most amazing things ever. They're a mid-major that's turned themselves into one of the best programs in America. And again, right now, they're the favorites to win it all. And they've got a freshman that you got to watch, this kid, Jalen Suggs. Yeah. He is a absolute – he's got like some of that burst of Russell Westbrook, but he's got some of that court vision of Jason Kidd. And so he's an incredible freshman. Drew Timme, a big kid on their team. He's a sophomore. They just got a lot of really, really good players. So, Gonzaga 1, Baylor 2. We've already seen big upsets. Down in Mohegan Sun, you saw San Francisco. I was there. San Francisco beat Virginia. And then you have Villanova lose to Virginia Tech, 2 unranked teams. So I'm surprised there haven't been more upsets so far early on in the season because of the pandemic and because a lot of these teams are playing quickly coming out of 14-day quarantines in which their players aren't even allowed to leave their rooms. Yeah. Like UMass right now, they're stuck in a hotel room, and they have been for now it's staggered. Some players, everybody's got to be in for, I think, at least 10 or 14 days, and they're all staggered. But these guys are in a hotel room. They can't work out. They can't do anything. They can't leave their room for 14 days, and then they're expected to come out of there and play a ball game like 5 days later. How safe is that? How effective are they going to be?
Yeah. Do you envision this season going on? Because, like Ohio State and Wisconsin, these teams in football, they're like struggling to get to their minimum requirement of games to get into a playoff. And I see here college basketball coaches talking about this already. It's like we're just looking for games here throughout the schedule to make sure we get to that number. Do you envision a major hiccup here in the middle of this season, or how do you see it playing out?
I think we'll get through it. Like I said, I think we've got enough inventory, enough teams that even if, like right now I'm going through it now, and there's probably 30 or 40 teams shut down right now that are on pause and quarantining. But again, you've still got 300 more. So people hardly notice, especially when Duke, as long as, like tonight, we got Duke, Michigan State, Kansas, Kentucky. Well, those are 4 big boys. If you get those games, life goes on, right?
Yeah. And I heard Boeheim complaining at Syracuse about, quick turnaround. I'm sure, is that the hardest thing on coaches right now is just scheduling and dealing with the virus and getting kids ready to play?
Yeah. Like for instance, Tony Bennett down in Mohegan Sun was, Jay Wright, I'll give you one. Jay Wright, his whole schedule changed completely. He took a game. I was talking to him at about 1 a.m. after their game on Thursday night. I think it was Thursday night. And they ended up taking that game against Virginia Tech, 2 days notice. So normally they got all this time to scout. They know their opponents for, 3 weeks in advance. So they have 3 assistants and they rotate who they're going to scout. So they're way ahead of the game here. Now it's like you can scout all you want. Like one coach told me he's had like 4 or 5 different opponents for their first game, and they've all been scrapped. I think Dayton is on their 3rd or 4th opponent for their first game of the season. They haven't even played yet.
Man, and all these guys have, family lives and everything, and they probably got, you mentioned your wife earlier. They probably got people worried about them. What, you're going to go sit in a hotel room with college kids for a week? Come on, it's a lot to take in, right? What do you think as we go forward here? Is there one player, or maybe from last year too, that had to really alter what they were going to do because of the pandemic? And there was a lot of that, right? People saying, "Do I really want to stick back in college for another year? Take the money where I can," because that NBA draft thing is such a tough deal.
Yeah, I mean, most of the top guys kind of, they ended up leaving. I mean, most of the Jeremiah Robinson Earl was one kid that I thought had a chance to go. But I talked to Jay Wright about it, and he said the way he was playing last year at the end of the season, if he had kept playing at that level, he might have put his name in for the draft and been gone. But instead, because there was no Big East tournament, there was no NCAA tournament, he felt like that was a big reason why Jeremiah Robinson Earl came back. He's been great so far this season, and I think he'll be a guy that's talked about. He's 6'9", 6'10", super skilled, can really step out and shoot it. Not a super athlete, but a good athlete. So he's a guy who I think came back when, again, might have been able to go if the season had finished out last year.
That's crazy. I think about you often when, I was watching last night, the Monday Night Football, and Adam Schefter's on the pregame and getting a text about the canceled game. And I picture that's a lot of your life right now, right? It's probably being right there. And there's a text.
Yeah, this thing is, my wife doesn't love it, and I don't blame her. It's, I don't know how many more years I got left of dealing with breaking news. Schefter makes more money than me, so I think that makes it a little bit easier for him at his paycheck. And in Woj, same thing. But I love my job, but as you get older, you want to just kind of at times put it down and not worry. And like I used to sleep with it next to me and never turn it off. And any text I'd get, West Coast time, whatever, it would wake me up in the middle of the night. Now I put it on, silent from 11 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning.
Is there one text that you've gotten breaking news style that has you will never forget? That is an unbelievable thing to get via text message.
I mean, there's been a lot. I mean, I remember years ago with Billy Donovan, when Billy Donovan left Florida and went to Orlando Magic and then went back. That was a crazy whole deal. That was kind of early on in the, really breaking things through text. I mean, that's how a lot of stuff's broken now is through text, because it's quicker, it's easier. You could be doing something else and texting people while you're doing a Zoom call, right? Like you can you can multitask a lot easier that way.
Yeah, and you're one of those guys too. You love the stories. I know you love finding that story about the kid who came from wherever and made himself into something. But I know you also you're one of those reporters who loves the game too, and that's why it was so tough missing out on the March Madness. You genuinely love the game of basketball. What has it been like? What was it like missing out on last year, the return this year, and how do you envision how do you view it now? Have you changed how you kind of view the game?
A little bit. I mean, again, you appreciate the interactions a little bit more. You appreciate being at a game, obviously, more. Like Boston College games this year. I haven't gone to a ton of BC games over the last few years because they haven't been good.
There's a joke there. There's a joke there somewhere.
Yes. This year they're going to allow us in, I think, because they have the hockey rink kind of set up, so they've got more room. I don't think there'll be much interaction after the game. I think it'll be Zoom calls with the players. But, I just got to figure out how comfortable I am. And my daughter's all over me because she's 17 and she's super into hockey now. And she started up her Instagram account about a year ago. And she's interviewed like Jason Tatum, Adam Schefter, a bunch of people that I haven't even, I never even set her up with the Adam Schefter one. She just did it on her own. Yeah. And now she wants to go to hockey games, whether it's college hockey, whatever. She would go to, she's emailing and I'm helping her UMass, Merrimack, anywhere around UMass Lowell, whatever it is. Are you allowing anybody in fan-wise? Most of them are not. And then can she somehow get in as part of media? So it's going to be interesting to see if she can do this or not. I give her credit. She's trying. And so I may be taking her to a college hockey game somewhere. Who knows where it'll be soon. So
you're obviously proud because you're smiling. And then I can see the other part of you going, just don't go to bed with cell phone next to you.
Yes. I don't want her to get in this business. I honestly, I really don't. I'd rather her get into something where it's a little more steady, 9 to 5. Again, I love my job. I do. I love it to death. But there are some parts of it that are difficult from a family standpoint. And I understand that. And I know how good my wife and daughter have been, when my daughter will literally be asking me a question and I'm like, I got to run, I got to take this. I got to tweet this or whatever. And I don't hear a word they're saying. Like they're both talking to me and I'm tweeting something out, and I feel like a complete bad father husband because, and I'm not great at multitask. Like my wife can watch a TV show and read and do something at the same time. Like I'm not that type. I need to be like focused on kind of one thing.
Yeah. I'd be remiss not to ask you, what are the Celtics doing? Every day there's something new.
Yeah, the big news today, and Brad Stevens kind of told us this. I do a podcast with Bob Ryan. He told us this last week that Kemba is not going to be ready for the start of the season. And now it's like at the earliest, I think it's the earliest you're talking mid-January at this point. So he's going to miss, the first couple months probably of the season. And that's why the addition of Jeff Teague, who's a veteran point guard who started a lot of games in the NBA, is so important. But again, we'll see what they do. I mean, Tatum's got to be what I think he can be, which is a top 5 player in the league. He's got to be that. And Kemba's got to eventually get back. But right now, you lost Hayward. You don't have Kemba. So right now, it's all on Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and that's a little scary. I think they're going to be fairly mediocre for the first half of the year until they get Kemba back.
And I'll use that to get us into rapid fire to end the show here, final moments. And you mentioned Kemba. Am I right? He's a really good dude. I bumped into him.
The best.
I bumped into him at the Big East tournament when I was still in college, and he was, I guess, we're about the same age. But I remember we literally bumped into him. I was like, oh, hey, Kemba. And he had like a 2-minute conversation with me. He was just like a sweet guy. He's like, oh, you're a Providence guy. Nice, great city,
Really. Always smiling. Doesn't say a ton, but always smiling. Always upbeat, great locker room guy. Yeah, great guy.
Cool. All right. So then who's the greatest coach to deal with in college basketball?
The greatest coach to deal with? For me, it's a guy named Chris Beard. I've known him forever at Texas Tech. He's elite level coach, kind of come out of nowhere for a lot of people, but he's kind of a junior college type coach. And I've just known him, for 15, 20 years. So he's the best to me, but there's a lot of great. I mean, listen, Jay Wright, who I just saw, is absolutely tremendous. Bruce Pearl's easy to deal with, very, very good. Most of them are pretty good. I mean, I don't have a great relationship with Calipari. Kay and I have been hot and cold over the years. I've kind of had my issues with a lot of them over the years, and I'm pretty good with most now. The worst to deal with right now for me would be Greg Marshall of Wichita State after what happened with him recently.
What a mess that is, man. Hit a player and denying it. Man, anything to add?
He got fired, but he walked out with almost $8 million, which is absolutely ridiculous. You punch a player, you choke an assistant, you plenty of verbal abuse as well. They do an investigation, they fire him, but they give him $7.75 million out the door. Just it's disappointing. It's disappointing, but unfortunately, it's kind of our culture now a little bit.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see if he lands somewhere. Who knows? Probably not, I would think. But
hopefully not. But you never know. He's a hell of a coach. So you know what? Some of these ADs, they don't give a shit. They just want to win games.
Best player you ever dealt with? Who was like the best guy to just spend time around and talk to?
It's a few right here in New England, in Massachusetts, that I'll give you. 2 NBA players, Pat Connaughton, George Niang. 2 elite level kids, unbelievable, just super smart. Now, I did a podcast with Grant Williams yesterday. Unbelievable, off the charts. Like those 3 are just 3 that come to mind right off the bat of being like elite level, top 1% of people, smart, no bullshit, just say it like it is, but don't get themselves into too much trouble either while doing that, which is hard to do.
Best venue in college basketball pre-pandemic?
Kansas, Allen Fieldhouse, with a slight edge over Duke. I've been to Duke more, so for me, going to Kansas, I haven't been quite as many times. You get that kind of rush as you walk up to to Fog Allen. It's just, yeah, it's amazing. Amazing.
Best college basketball game you ever been to?
Best college. I mean, probably Villanova's win a couple years ago against Carolina. I mean, that shot by Chris Jenkins at the end of the game in the final game of the year, the national title game, it doesn't get much better than that. So I would say that one has to be number one.
No, very cool. All right, Jeff Goodman, man, this was a pleasure. If I let you leave on this note, it's great to have college basketball back. Man, did we miss it last year. Hopefully the season can get going. What do you think if people are watching college basketball, just settling in? What would you say? What's the message in a pandemic to kind of the approach of watching this season? Because there's going to be some hiccups, but we'll keep moving.
Just enjoy it. Enjoy it. We haven't had a lot of build up before the season. But there's a lot of – like this freshman class is super talented. Cade Cunningham, as I mentioned, Jalen Suggs, kid that's on today. Zaire Williams from Stanford is unbelievable. There's a lot of really Evan Mobley at USC, much more talent at the top of next year's NBA draft in this college basketball season than a year ago. So I think, again, it'll be fun to watch. And there'll be a lot – I think once you get into league play – there's going to be a lot more upsets than we've seen.
In a March Madness bubble?
I hope so. I'm preparing to go to Indianapolis for about a month. I haven't told my wife or daughter that, but I think that's where we're probably headed come March.
And how they doing? Everybody healthy on the family front?
Everybody's good. They're good. My daughter, a 17-year-old girl, junior in high school. She's doing all right, the best she can, and the best I think we all can. So I appreciate you having me. I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad you're still working hard, and hopefully we can get that beer at some point soon.
Yeah, so hopefully soon. I miss seeing a college basketball game in person. So, all right, Jeff Goodman, man, appreciate the time. Enjoy the day, all right?
Appreciate it. You too. We'll talk soon.
All right, Jeff Goodman, good stuff right there with one of the best college basketball insiders. Actually, safe to say basketball insiders in the game as well. I remember he broke a lot of Celtics news around here last year. He actually did some on last time he was on our show. I remember, I forget what that was. It was something about it might have been the Kemba trade back in the day. I can't remember, but he was telling me something, and I was like, wait a minute, what do you just say? I think he just broke news, but he's always doing that. Jeff Goodman, a good guy, Newburyport boy there, lives in Newburyport and doing a lot of work from Newburyport with work from home like everybody else. So I'm a big college basketball guy. You all know that. So that's a good guess for me. I enjoy talking some hoops and could do it forever. So indeed, that's going to do it for the week. That's it. How about that? Show's in the books. Sarah is not here today. She got up early and was out. She running with the dog, working at the school. She had a more productive day, so I got to catch up on my productivity today. But she was on Tuesday. So we got our ones this week. One hit for the Sarah fan club. There you go. Have a great weekend, everybody. My name is Drew Moholland. Until next time. And a big thanks to Jeff Goodman, as always. Be safe, everybody. Live from Drew's house. Peace.